Okay, so this was reported late yesterday evening, but a lot of reports out there are saying that ESPN, Stephen A. Smith, has finally agreed to a contract extension at the worldwide leader of sports. It is reported that it's 5 years. It is for $100 million. Woo! So Stephen A. Smith got his wish. Uh, he wanted to remain at ESPN. He wanted $100 million contract, and he wanted to be the highest paid sports, if you want to call it a sports influencer, sports journalist. You know, he got all that, particularly in this deal. I don't know how this deal matches with him and Pat McAfee. They still, it really doesn't matter. The man's getting his money. He's remaining at ESPN. He will continue to do First Take. I'm pretty sure they're going to have him on a lot of other platforms at ESPN. So, not too sure. He also wanted to be on the Monday Night Football telecast over there with Troy Aikman and those guys over there. Maybe during this deal, when there's something major happens, he may get some airtime there. But Stephen A. Smith wanted his face in every place when it's concerned to ESPN. Now, if you've been following my channel, I've been saying this, uh, that this was happening. Now, I did make a couple of videos because it seemed like they were kind of dragging their feet along. Uh, the representatives for Stephen A. Smith and the representatives over there at ESPN. It took a minute. I think there was a few things that kept them dragging their feet. One thing was the length of the contract, and another thing it was to make him the highest sports analysis or journalist or influencer, whatever terminology you want to use to apply to Stephen A. Smith and guys like that. Even though Stephen A. Smith is top on his game, there's no one above Stephen A. Smith in sports entertainment. And everyone goes to ESPN. Fox Sports 1 is not what it used to be. And, everyone just, when you look at CBS and you look at NBC and you look at other networks and websites and publications, it's not their top priority for their sports division to compete with ESPN. They just do their thing, and that's pretty much it. ESPN needed Stephen A. Smith, but Stephen A. Smith also needed ESPN, because out of all those networks and websites and publications that we were kicking the tires around, nobody was going to give Stephen A. Smith this flexibility as well as visually than what ESPN can give him. ESPN has a bigger audience than those other networks. If he would have went and moved on to another network, he would have pretty much started all over, because no one has a bigger grip with the sports audience than ESPN. So he'll be essentially starting all over, trying to build from scratch. And if Stephen A. Smith is very smart, he knows, and he looks at the landscape, and he looks at so many other people that betted on themselves and went elsewhere to compete with ESPN, only to fall flat on their face. Colin Cowherd moved to Fox Sports 1, even though he has a very successful show, the Herd Show. Now he's, with the audience of Fox Sports 1, now he's speculating whether or not, hey, maybe I should go back to ESPN. It's a bigger market. It's a bigger audience. There's nothing bigger than ESPN. If you look at Skip Bayless, he betted on himself, and he too went to Fox Sports 1. He had a crack at it. He had a very successful show Undisputed with him and Shannon Sharpe, but it just seems like there was a chemistry problem with those two. And Fox Sports 1 did not believe in either one of them to extend them to a full-time contract, only to be the third, possibly the second best show in all of sports entertainment. First Take was still cranking in the numbers before and after Shannon Sharpe. And, Shannon Sharpe and Skip Bayless did not move the needle where they ultimately liked for it to be. So they severed the ties with Shannon Sharpe, and then a year later they did the same with Skip Bayless by not renewing him to another extension. But if you look, and I'm pretty sure Stephen A. Smith is looking at the landscape out there, and there are no other shows that could compete with First Take. And he also looks at the landscape and goes, well, this is, I'm in a better situation here than taking my talents elsewhere and essentially, either building something or, possibly this going to a network that is struggling with, possibly they are struggling with ESPN, and try to get it out the mud, only to be in the same situation those other guys I just have mentioned. Now, Stephen A. Smith has his own YouTube channel. He got it a little bit later on when he realized that there's money out there on social media, and particularly with YouTube. He does great with that. ESPN now, word around campfire is ESPN is funding that show, the Stephen A. Smith show, on YouTube. So that's a plus. It's just ESPN had more resources than any other network or publication or, website or whatever. So, again, and I said this in the beginning of this video, and I've been saying this in other videos, these two really need each other, but Stephen A. Smith needs ESPN more, okay? I know people are going to say in the comment section, no, ESPN needs Stephen A. Smith. If there was, and I didn't feel like there was an inch of this, but if Stephen A. Smith just simply wanted to go and move forward and to do something else or to go someplace else, ESPN would be okay. Folks, you have to be realist here, okay? First Take was not going to die off if Stephen A. Smith would have exit stage left. They still have Shannon Sharpe. Despite what people think, they still have Molly. I'm just talking about on that show alone, and I'm pretty sure they'll find someone that would obviously Shannon Sharpe will be the new face of First Take, and they will have to find someone to talk sports with him, which shouldn't be that hard because Shannon Sharpe, it resonates very big on that show. Maybe Cam Newton, maybe a different person a day like they did with Stephen A. Smith. You still have Pat McAfee. You still have Monday Night Football. You still have all these other shows, which also came this week. That I forgot that game show that's on ESPN has been on for forever. Not pardon the interruption. Around the Horn. The end is near for Around the Horn. Okay, but yeah, you got so much great talent over there at ESPN. It would have been a plug and play opportunity, and they would not lose their grip in the ratings or the popularity. Now, they still cover the NBA. They still cover basketball, even though the NBA is not in a good place right now. When you look at that TV deal, a lot of those networks, including ESPN, were betting on themselves. And, even though this is the first year of it, they're not getting what they thought they was going to get with the TV deal with the NBA. But the NBA, I think if you give the NBA enough time, they will turn their fortunes around. Okay, but back to Stephen A. Smith. If he would have just went somewhere else, I don't know where somewhere else is. TNT Sports is pretty much college football and NASCAR. Uh, NBC Sports, they don't stick their whole foot in sports. They just, let people know that, hey, we got a little sports network over here. I don't think Stephen A. Smith can going to NBC Sports. I don't see Stephen A. Smith making that network popular overnight. It would take time and some other personalities. The same could be said for CBS Sports. Now, I feel like also Stephen A. Smith, with the opportunity with this extension, he can do other things. He can still do his show with YouTube, the Stephen A. Smith show on YouTube. And I said earlier, ESPN is kind of sort of funding that. He also wants to do politics. I don't think he wants to be, there's a lot of reports out there that want Stephen A. Smith to be the next president of the United States. I don't think he's going to go that far deep into politics, but he does have political takes. And I still feel like, even though it's not mentioned, Stephen A. Smith wants to do a nighttime show, similar to what The Tonight Show is doing, or the night shows on all three of the major networks. I think Stephen A. Smith have a very strong desire into doing that. I don't know. We will have to wait and see. Now, we had a little sample with Quite Frankly when Stephen A. Smith did his nighttime show on Quite Frankly, but people have to remember the majority of that audience was sports, the sports audience. It wasn't necessarily the entertainment audience or the political audience, or there's just so many different audiences. I think, Quite Frankly, satisfied the sports audience and maybe to a certain extent to the entertainment audience, but it didn't cross over the other major audiences out there. So we did get a small sample size with Quite Frankly. I think he did a solid performance there, but putting Stephen A. Smith, putting his face into place for your like NBC, CBS, or ABC, and he's doing it 5 nights a week. I don't know how that could. I don't know how he can sustain that. Stephen A. Smith is not. He's very entertaining. He's very entertaining. He's very charming. He's very informative. He's kind of funny. And with those type of shows, you have to be, slapstick funny consistently. Okay. And who knows, the writers, he's going to have writers on set, and he's going to be cranking out these jokes, particularly on his monologue, but you get my point. So yeah, there's really nothing else to talk about when you talk about Stephen A. Smith. It is what it is. So guys, how about you think? Rate, comment, subscribe. I will see you guys in the next video.